Scunthorpe Amateur Speedway meeting, 1st of March 2015. Slick or what? The call went out. Is anyone willing to wave a red flag at Scunthorpe Sunday, March 1st? Please, mister, I will, says I via Facebook. Wrap up warm, a cold wind is blowing around these parts, said Richard in reply. We don't want you to get your nether regions frozen or get blown away through the air like Mary Poppins or Nanny McPhee. A cold wind was blowing, nearly blew me across the motorway. The things we do for Speedway. Richard was also expecting rain, so he decided the meeting would begin at 11, finish by 3 before the downpour began. Richard also wrote, you probably haven't received your SCB 2015 licence yet, so you will need to fill in a day permit. Rules are rules, I'm afraid. Well, I didn't know you had to be licensed to wave a red flag these days, but as paranoia rules the roost in Speedway, I thought I'd best get there early and fill in the form. Otherwise, I might have to undergo an FIM investigation and not be able to wave a red flag at least 10 months, unjust or what, according, of course, to your predilection. When I arrived, all the red flag places had been taken. Redundant or what? So much for the SCB 2015 licence. Never mind, Mr. C, said Richard. Someone will need a break at some point, and you'll receive your red flag of convenience. Racing commenced 11 a.m. 4 classes of riders competing in 62 races. Looking through the listed riders, I noticed Greg Hancock was riding in an officers' race. I thought Richard had done very well slipping Greg into the meeting without anyone noticing. I wondered if he needed an SCB 2015 licence. While I was waiting for my flag of convenience, I fell into conversation with a gentleman who said to me, I noticed Greg Hancock's riding today. I said, it looks like it, and probably Jason Crump and Nicky Pedersen will be there too, incognito. But it wasn't Greg, of course. It was Craig Hancock. You'll want to win a race with a name like that, said the gentleman. No doubt he would, I thought, and I'm sure he did. The racing began and the organisation was a sight to behold. The way the riders lined up at the pits gate, ready to go out onto the track, while the previous race was still in motion. When the riders had taken the checkered flag, they rode round the back straight, stopped at the pit gate to let the next group of racers on the track. When those racers came on, the previous group rode off into the pits. This was how it went from race 1 through to race 62, without pause, from start to finish. Slick, or what, eh? After hanging about for an hour or so, I was suffering red flag withdrawal symptoms. I thought it's time I made my mark in Speedway. Fortunately, a red flag waver had to leave, and I ended up on the first bend with a worn-out torn red flag that kept it entangling itself round the end of its stick. But it's so much better to watch the racing from the centre green. You can see the racing close up and admire the technique, or lack of it, used by the riders in question. It's interesting to see riders leave the tapes and power into the first bend. At that point, they are all pursuing the line they want to take, meaning they come closer together as they make the turn into the bend. Stood on the centre green, you see this action close up. It's impressive to see that even though they are travelling at high speed, how the riders are obviously aware of where they are on the track and where those around them are also. You can gauge the competence of a rider by observing this action and decide who is likely to come unstuck at some point during a race. Riders can misjudge situations, run wide or clip another rider as they try to find their position on the track. What is impressive is that for the most part the riders come out of the first bend in good order and proceed with the race, where you might expect them to climb and fall off more than they do. This applies as much to the riders with experience and skill as it does to those with finding their feet in the sport. You have to be able to mix it with the other riders if you want to make any headway in Speedway. You also have to have confidence in the riders around you, no matter what level you are riding at. I like to observe a rider's technique throughout a race, and it's always better to see them ride close up from the centre green. After all the qualifying races were over, which I didn't realise at the time as the races went by so fast, all the staff on the centre green suddenly disappeared. I thought, is the meeting over already and I just don't know it? Fancy leaving Mr. C all alone on his Jack Palance. Mentioning the name of the actor, Jack Palance recalls an amusing anecdote from my attendance at the 1975 World Final at Wembley. I was there with a group of friends. One, called Steve, often used the phrase, on my Jack Palance, when he was left on his own. Suddenly, for reasons known only to himself, while we were sat in the stadium awaiting for the meeting to begin, in, he announced loudly that Jack Palance was riding today. The rest of us chimed in saying, "What do you mean Jack Palance is actually riding?" "Yes," said he, "and a good job too, don't you think?" Suffice to say, we made a big and loud deal about this sudden unannounced additional rider in the meeting. People around us asked, "Who did you say was riding?" "Jack Palance," said Steve, "top-class American Speedway rider of exceptional ability." "Who's he riding in place of?" they asked as this bit of latest news gathered momentum around us. "Victor Trofimov," said a very sharp Steve, after a quick glance at the programme. "Why, what's wrong with him?" Forecast. "He couldn't make it," said a very quick Steve. "He had visa problems, so they drafted in Jack Palance to take his place." "Can they do that?" Forecast. "Something that would fill 300 pages on the BSF these days." "Well, they must be able to do that," said Steve, feigning surprise at such a question. "Otherwise he wouldn't be riding, would he?" "Suppose not," said folk who respected the fact that those who run Speedway always know what they're doing. Steve strung this out for a while till some bright spark suddenly said, "Jack Palance is an actor." "Doesn't stop him riding in a Speedway World Final though," said a laconic Steve. "If he wants to." We finally told folk it was a joke, just to pass the time with, and being Halifax supporters we had to find something to laugh about. So I'm there alone on the centre green, wondering how long the break would take. But the treat of the day arrived at that very moment. Two little lads came out for a ride around. As the very young riders often do, for safety reasons, one went round to the tapes and the other went to the opposite side of the track, and both set off to ride. They rode round in this manner for a number of laps, realised they still had time on the track, and did the same again. Then there came a point when it appeared they had had enough of riding in this manner, and both of them came to the tapes side by side. It was obvious they had decided to have a proper race instead of riding around as they had been. You could imagine the one saying to the other, "You be Emma, where is he from? And I'll be Darcy Labitoff, the Siberian Speedway sliders surfing around sunny Scully on a blustery day." Off they went side by side, full tilt, doing their thing as proper riders do, and they did it so well, without a trace of uncertainty in what they were doing, but no one was watching. The one passed the other in a very smooth overtake. The one overtaken didn't lose control but went off in pursuit. He didn't catch him, but he wasn't far behind. They enjoyed it so much they did it all over again, and it was a treat to watch. Then it was all action again. The pit gates opened and it was, "Come on you two, get off the track, your 5 minutes are up, it's time for the finals." But they were for me the highlight of the day. The finals came and went, and Richard will tell you who won, because the problem is on the centre green you can't hear a word the announcers say. Then all of a sudden it was over. I looked at my watch and it was about 20 minutes past 2. Impressive for what? Slick too, just like the track with its 3 feet wide blue groove. The reason it was impressive is the meeting started at 11 a.m, finished at 2:20, subtract 20 minutes for the break, the meeting took 3 hours to complete. In other words, it took 180 minutes to run. Divided that by 62 races, that means it took 3 minutes to complete each race. 3 minutes for the riders coming out of the pits. It went on like that from first race to last race, without a pause, except for the 20-minute break. After the meeting I spoke with Richard and told him he deserved an MBE for what he did. Richard of course brushed it off, as he always does, stating that it's the staff and the riders working in tandem with each other that makes it happen as it does. But as I have said to him before, you are the catalyst. Richard would beg to differ, but as he was about to do so, a gentleman approached him, said, "Another slick meeting, Richard, well done." Therefore I rest my case and leave it at that until the next time I have to cue to wave a red flag. The end.